Paris, the City of Light, remains one of the world's most prosperous hubs, generating more wealth per capita than almost any other European capital. Its luxury sector, spearheaded by giants like LVMH and Chanel, exports tens of billions in products every year. However, if you travel just beyond the ring road that circles the city, you encounter a different reality. In regions like the industrial north, unemployment is rampant, infrastructure is failing, and public services are vanishing. This isn't a sudden accident, it's the result of decades of fiscal mismanagement. France's public debt has tripled in 25 years, now exceeding 3 trillion euros. Interest payments alone have become so high, they surpass the entire budget for national research and universities. Since 2017, the country has seen a revolving door of prime ministers, yet none have managed to deliver the structural reforms needed to stop the bleeding. Real wages have stagnated while the cost of living has skyrocketed. The pension system, once the pride of the nation, now consumes nearly 15% of the entire economy, more than education, defense, and transportation combined. At its core, the problem is chronic overspending. For over half a century, the French state has run a budget deficit, always spending more than it collects. Now the bill is finally coming due. For much of the 20th century, France was the gold standard for social prosperity. It built a welfare state that promised security from cradle to grave. If you were sick, the state paid. If you were unemployed, the state provided. When you retired, your pension was a certainty. For a time, this model worked perfectly, fueled by strong post-war growth. It seemed like proof that a nation could balance high-level capitalism with a robust social safety net. But there was a structural flaw. Tax revenues never actually covered the costs. The gap was filled by debt, year after year, starting in 1974. While debt can be useful for investment, France's borrowing eventually shifted from building the future to simply maintaining the present. Today, the country faces a triple threat: a demographic collapse, an industrial exodus, and a political system paralyzed by polarization. These are not isolated issues. They are a feedback loop dragging the nation down. The demographic crisis is the most immediate danger. In 2010, France had the highest fertility rate in Europe. Today, it has plummeted. Births have dropped by 20% in just over a decade, a decline sharper than even that of Germany. This timing is catastrophic because the baby boomer generation is retiring en masse. Every year, hundreds of thousands of workers leave the workforce, but significantly fewer young people enter to replace them. In 1990, there were 5 workers for every retiree. Today, that ratio is approaching 2. By 2040, it will be even lower. The second pillar of the crisis is deindustrialization. In 1980, manufacturing was a quarter of the French economy. Today, it is barely half of that. When a factory closes, it isn't just one business that vanishes. It's an entire local ecosystem of suppliers, shops, and services. Since the introduction of the euro, France has lost nearly 1 million manufacturing jobs. While global competition is a factor, France's own labor laws have made it the most expensive place to hire in the eurozone. When social benefits are included, French labor costs significantly more than German or Polish labor. Consequently, manufacturers have fled. Iconic French brands have moved production to Morocco, Romania, or Slovakia. What remains is a fractured nation, a wealthy service-based elite in Paris, and a decaying industrial wasteland in the provinces. Finally, there is the political paralysis. French politics has shattered into 5 competing blocs, making a parliamentary majority nearly impossible. Every attempt at reform triggers massive protest and political suicide for those in power. When the retirement age was recently raised, it caused a national rupture that paralyzed the government for months. This gridlock prevents the country from fixing its convoluted tax system or rigid labor regulations. As the mainstream fails to deliver change, voters are turning to the extremes. Anti-establishment parties now command over half the electorate, not enough to govern effectively, but more than enough to block any meaningful progress. For KyneAndCo viewers, the lesson is clear. A nation that refuses to make hard choices eventually finds its choices made for it by the market. France's borrowing costs are rising, its influence is waning, and unless it can find a way to reinvent its productivity, perhaps through massive automation, it risks becoming a shadow of its former self, old, indebted, and stagnant. France was once the heart of Europe. Now it is becoming its greatest liability.